Welcome to part 2 of webinar, Ensure the Path to a Successful Atlassian Cloud Migration. Today, we will be talking about how to properly perform a test migration, the pros and the cons of it, and what to check for. This webinar session covers Jira Conference and Bitbucket. So, if for people who missed the part 1, how to prepare for cloud migration, you can check out our YouTube video. I'll do a quick introduction about Dragon Agile. We are Atlassian solution partner. Globally, we are platinum solution partner. We provide licensing, training, implementation. We can also help design apps. We have global offices in Canada, China, and Japan. Our headquarters, Dragonsoft, is located in Shanghai, China. Dragon Agile is located in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. We are also Atlassian marketplace vendor. We have 15 apps available on the marketplace. Here is an example list of our customers. Our customers are from North America, from Asia, and some are also from Europe. So next, I will hand over to my teammate, Matthew. He will talk in details about test migration. Matthew, it's your turn. Mm-hmm. I'm going to unshare.
So hi, everyone. I'm Matthew. Nice to meet you all. Today, I'm going to take you through the test migration steps for an Atlassian cloud migration. So here's today's agenda. First, we'll go over the pros and cons of testing a migration. These apply to all Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket. Then we'll go over how to properly test a migration. After, we'll talk about other upcoming webinars related to this one. And following this, we'll spin a wheel to see who wins today's prize. And at the very end, there'll be a chance for a Q&A from the audience. So let's get started with the pros and cons of testing a migration. So why should you test the migration in the first place? Some benefits would be knowing how long the migration would take, so your company knows not to make any changes during these times. As well, validating the data and running UAT is extremely important in getting adapted to the new cloud interface. We'll cover what to look out for relating to Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket. It's good to encounter unexpected problems during the test migration rather than during the actual production migration. And the only downside to testing a migration is that when running the actual production migration, if you're merging with an existing cloud site, you'll have to delete data. And if it's a new cloud site, you'll have to reset your cloud site. So next, we'll move on to how to properly test a migration. Again, this includes all Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket. So step 1 is to sign up for your cloud site. The format of your cloud site will be example.atlassian.net, where example is your site name. One thing to keep in mind is that site names are chosen for an entire Atlassian cloud site at the time you sign up for your first product. So for example, when you first sign up for Jira Software Cloud, the same site name will be used for Confluence. So step 2 is the database integrity checker. This is to ensure that all your Jira data is in a consistent state. We briefly mentioned this in part 1 of our webinar series, and now we'll go into more detail. This integrity checker can be found under administration and then system support, and then integrity checker. Here you can find several different options to check the integrity of. If any inconsistencies were found, a fix button will appear. Messages in red will be fixed by the integrity checker, but messages in yellow are warnings that the check will not fix. You can also select which inconsistencies you would like to fix. After this, a summary will be shown of the corrective actions that have taken place. So things about entities. the migration assistant tracks what has been migrated and what has changed between migrations in order to prevent duplicates. So the logic in this image applies to all entities, such as custom fields, screens, permission schemes, etc. The migration assistant first checks whether the entity has been migrated before, and then whether it has been deleted from the destination site or modified, and then also checks whether it has the same name as an entity that already exists in the cloud. After these assessments, it will either link it to the existing entity in the cloud, create a new entity with a migrated tag, or create an entirely new entity with the original name. So one thing to keep in mind, if you're using both the staging server and a production server to test your migration, if you don't reset or delete the entities in the cloud site, there will be a migrated suffix attached to some entities. Currently, these 8 entities on the screen will follow the logic in this picture, which will merge entities if they're identical. Atlassian is planning on adding this logic for all entities in the future. And any other entities not in these 8 will have a migrated suffix after the name. So after configuring a migration, but before running it, the assistant will generate 3 pre-migration reports, which are configuration items, summary reports, and requires attention. Configuration items will list every entity that the migration assistant will migrate. Summary reports will list issues and attachments for each project and how many are expected to be migrated. It will also include other entities like permission schemes, roles, workflows, custom fields, etc. And the requires attention file will list all entities that will not be migrated with the assistant, along with a description of why and a workaround for it. After running the migration, the assistant will generate a post-migration report, which includes entities that could not be migrated. If you need these entities in cloud, you could either manually recreate them or fix the problem in the server site, delete the project in the cloud site, and remigrate the entire project. So step 3 is to perform the test migration. So follow the steps outlined in the corresponding migration assistant, and there's more information on the next slides regarding that. The migration assistant will not let you migrate if there's a project or space with the same name already in the cloud. So if you want to run more than one test migration, you'll have to either manually delete the relevant projects or delete all your data from the cloud site. So the 3 main steps to how the migration assistant works are assess your apps, prepare your apps, and migrate your data. And each of these steps are covered in more detail on the next slides. So for assess your apps, there are 4 different statuses, and each app must be assigned a status. The migration of apps and app data is handled by the vendor, not by Atlassian. So the first status, no decision made, is the default, and this will not migrate anything. Needed in cloud means you need this app and its data in your cloud site, and depending on the migration path, the assistant will try to migrate the app along with its data and generate a log as to what has or hasn't been migrated. Not needed in cloud means the app does not need to be migrated to your cloud instance and nothing will be migrated. Use alternative will allow you to select an alternative app to replace the current one. So the second step is to prepare your apps. So the migration assistant will ask you to install the apps on the cloud site, and you can do it directly through the assistant. For apps to be migrated, the vendor must have created an automated path through the assistant. For each app, you will need to agree to app migration. Since the app data migration is performed through the vendor or the marketplace partner, you must review and agree to each marketplace partner agreement. And remember that once you agree to a third-party migration, you can always revoke your agreement at any time. So the last step is to migrate your data. So the migration assistant will review your migration to check for common errors. After configuring your migration, make sure to save it and run it. and don't close out of the browser until either of those actions have been done. So it will also generate the pre-migration report and post-migration report, which were mentioned earlier. So once you run the migration, you can monitor the progress of it by viewing the details, and there it will show which project it is migrating and what percentage of entities it has migrated. So step 4 is to review your migrated data in the cloud. So after the migration, you should check application links to other server products, which might need to be manually recreated, and also test their functionality to ensure that the integration works as expected. If you migrated any app or app data, you should check that those are working as well. And be sure to document any changes for training and communication in the future. So step 5 is to review your data for Jira. So for Jira, you should check that workflows are working as expected. Remember that some workflow functions, such as triggers and post functions, will not be migrated with the assistant. As well, if you had already created the workflows with all the triggers, conditions, and post functions, you should reassociate the projects to those workflows before testing functionalities. You should also try using the product and create test data, such as projects, issues, and uploading attachments. If you had migrated both Jira and Confluence and Jira, there's a tool called the Jira Macro Repair Tool, which will properly map the Jira Issues macro to the correct application link. For Confluence, you should check that your attachments have imported correctly. If you migrated any app or app data, you should check that those are working as expected. And you should also check if your macros still work. If they rely on a third-party app, you should check with the app vendor to see if it's possible to fix them. Step 7 is to review your data for Bitbucket. So Bitbucket is a lot simpler. So just check if your repositories, projects, and users are in the cloud site. And remember that group and project permissions are not migrated over to Bitbucket Cloud. So step 8 is user acceptance testing. So user acceptance testing, or having some end users replicate common day-to-day tasks, is very important to a successful migration. This will help catch unexpected issues and prepare for change. There are a few things that you should test for as they're likely as a result of the migration. And this includes for Jira software and Jira work management, you should test things like creating sprints, adding issues to backlogs, and viewing boards. For Jira service management, you should ask your agents to view queues, check their portal view, and any other common activities. For Confluence, you should have users try creating a new space, edit a page, and upload attachments. And any issues or changes should be recorded, since it will help later with onboarding and training. So step 10 is to create your migration runbook. So now that you have more of an idea of what the migration will look like, you should create a migration runbook. So this is a step-by-step procedural guide on what needs to be done for the migration. And this will ensure that the production migration runs smoothly and according to plan. It should include instructions for each step, who will complete those steps, and how long each one is expected to take. So the last step is change boarding and launch plan. This is just to prepare training, documentation, or communications in order to highlight what's changing and why it's changing. This includes benefits such as Atlassian access, which removes the need for a VPN in the server site. So now let's talk about our other upcoming webinars related to this session. So the times and dates of each part can be seen here. Each webinar will cover all Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket. So in part 3, we'll cover what happens during production migration, possible issues to look out for, how to resolve them, and how to review the migrated data. This session also includes a guest speaker from Old Street Solutions, who will talk about migrating their dashboard apps to cloud. In part 4, we will cover post-migration tasks. including cleaning up users, groups, projects, and other entities. There will also be a testimonial from a real customer about their successful cloud migration. So before we go to the Q&A session, it's time to see who the winner of today's webinar is. And I'll hand it back to Irene so she can spin the wheel.
Thank you, Matthew. Certainly. Let me share my screen. So can you see my screen? Yes?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. So winning the prize is a two-step process. First, we had to select the gift to win for today. So last time, the ukulele package has been won by attendee, but we still have 3 prizes left. So we are going to spin this wheel to see which gift we are going to give out. Well, it looks like it's a $25 gift. Great. So let's move over to select the user.
You're like a circle that floats.
Yep, so if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat or in the Q&A.
All right, so if we don't have questions, I guess you can always contact us and we'll be happy to answer any of your migration questions. So thank you for attending the webinar. I'll see you in next session. Bye now.